This is a follow-up of the first sort of like student gathering that we had last week. For those of you who are interested in joining the Title V student leadership group. So we want to make sure that everybody who is going to be working with us is sort of like on the same page, right? When it comes to that type of like social justice work that we want to do and that type of sort of like perspective that we want you to have, right? As we start doing this work at Dominican.
All right, y'all. Professor Cook, hello. I'm in the English department. My area of specialization is literature of the African diaspora. But the reason I'm talking today, this started with a conversation that I was having with Lisa and Fanny about Black-Brown relations and the work of Title V at Dominican. Yeah, that's a clean way, an easy, fast, easy way to describe it. And I have a very particular perspective on race, ethnicity, identity, and communication across those politics, right? So part of what you're going to be getting today is some insight into my views on race, where it comes from, ethnicity, identity, how we do it, not just in the United States, but in the world, and a lot of history behind these Black-Brown issues, right? That we see in operation on the Dominican campus, that we see in operation in Chicago, that we see in operation in the country, that we see in operation in the world. So I hope by the time you leave here today, you have some deeper understanding, some deeper sense of the complexities of race and identity and why the shit that you see and live every day in the world is the way that it is. I'm gonna make a statement right now that I want you to keep in your heads, and my goal is by the end of the talk, you're gonna understand what the fuck I'm talking about, right? The statement that I'm gonna make right now is, we are all white supremacists. I want you to write that down. When I say we, who do you think I'm talking about? White people?
Americans?
Hello. We are all white supremacists. Okay. To get us on the road to understanding that statement, we are all white supremacists. I have a question. What's the difference between civilization, and those of you who've had me in class, Shayna, don't cheat. What's the difference between civilization and chaos? What separates society and civilization from chaos? What separates them? First answer. I love that. Especially we short on time too, Misha. Order, yo. This is a heavy word. Order's a big word, man. Because the word order denotes that decisions have to be made. Right? What does chaos mean? Chaos means anything goes. Right? Chaos means no one thing's better than the other, no one thing is good or the other thing is bad, no one thing is more meaningful than the other. Like, that's chaos. Chaos is everything has equal opportunity to exist uninterrupted, unfettered. That's chaos. Right? Order means decisions have to be made about which things are going to be positioned where for some reason or some purpose, right? That's what order does. Order provides structure. Order provides system, right? Because once you establish the idea that there needs to be order, order needs to be established, the next thing that you have to do is you have to decide, okay, so what systems are going to be put in place in order to achieve order, right? Not everything can be fair, not everything can be equal. The fundamental definition of order is that everything is not equal. Equality and order cannot exist in the same space at the same time. It's fucked up, right? Order demands, mandates discrimination. If there's no discrimination, there's no order. You have to come up with, what are your mechanisms for establishing your order? What are your mechanisms for making sure that things are positioned where they're supposed to be, right? These tools, these mechanisms of order, today, for our purposes, we're going to call them social constructs. When you're trying to establish social order, when you're trying to establish social hierarchy and delineation of value, when you're trying to establish social forms of establishing discrimination, mechanisms for discrimination, that's what social constructs are for. They are for the purposes of mechanizing social order. So what is a social construct? Right? Social constructs are how we define our order. So when I talk about social constructs in the context of the conversation we're going to be having today, I say physical traits, biological characteristics, and we apply social value to them for the purposes of establishing our order. Yeah? So social constructs would be something like, biologically speaking, right? What's sex? Sex is penis, vagina, right? Biologically speaking, that has to do with your respective position within the reproductive process, right? That's biology, that's biological characteristics, right? Gender, though, gender is the value we place on penis, the value we place on vagina. Gender is a social construct. What does skin color mean? We have the Human Genome Project. Any of you can Google Human Genome Project and you can read its findings, right? We're 99.9999999% all the same, regardless of color, skin color, sex, any of that shit, right? So biologically speaking, race doesn't even exist. Like, biologically speaking, the differences in skin colors is a genetic factor of way less than 1%, right? But socially speaking, right? What value do we place on skin color? What does skin color mean in terms of how we are valued socially? You see what I'm saying? So skin color, biologically speaking, is literally insignificant to scientists. Like, skin color means nothing to scientists, biologically speaking. But socially speaking, it means, what doesn't it mean? Right? The reason we apply social value to these biological things is for the purposes of enacting a social order, a means of valuing humans socially. That's what social constructs are for.